What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and I hope you're all doing well today. With the Dragonflight Pre-Patch event coming out later this evening, we'll be able to do the first of the new Dragonflight dungeons if you're level 60, Uldaman, Legacy of Tyr. This video is a quick rundown of the important boss mechanics and how to deal with them on normal difficulty, which is all that's available during the Pre-Patch event. On Heroic, there's only one major difference, and that's with one boss gaining an extra ability, which I will mention during the fight. Each boss fight will be timestamped in the video play bar, so skip through as you see fit, or just remember for later, so if you need a refresher you can come back to the specific spot you need information on. First up, we have the Lost Dwarves. The three brothers, Balog, Eric the Swift, and Olaf each have a couple moves, plus one group attack that they'll perform when they jump aboard their cannon-blasting longboat for the longboat raid ability. Some of their moves aren't telegraphed very well, so I'll do my best to point them out in the video. Balog has multiple frontal attacks, so never be in front of him. Wild Cleave is a frontal cone that hits up to 10 yards away. You'll see some small earthquake kinda looking animations on the ground wherever it hits. His other ability is Heavy Arrow. This is a straight line piercing attack that will hit all players in the path and knock them away. Eric the Swift has one important move, Skullcracker. He'll pick the current location of a player and lunge to that spot after a brief delay. It looks like a big brown swirly kind of effect, and it has a 5-yard radius of impact. If you're hit, you'll take damage and you'll be disoriented for 3 seconds. Lastly is Olaf. He has an interruptible cast called Defensive Bulwark that is a huge 75% damage reduction for any of the dwarves while they're in the radius, so interrupt this cast immediately. His other move is Ricocheting Shield. This targets a random player and puts a big circle around them. If you get this, move away from other players so that no one is in the circle, because this shield will bounce to up to 5 players if they're within 5 yards of each other. The Lost Dwarves will also jump on their longboat periodically or once you knock them out of the fight. This makes a bunch of red fire damage puddles that knock you back and put a stacking, dispellable damage over time effect. Just avoid the red spots and you should be fine. Each dwarf on the longboat also increases the rate that it shoots the searing cannon fire ability. And when they jump on there and call for all 3 of them to get on the boat, you can still hit them while they're in the air, so be sure to keep DPSing them just while moving around. Up next is Bromach, the Trogg Chieftain. He'll summon some adds to fight for him, Stone Vault Ambushers and Stone Vault Geomancers. Ambushers will jump around and, surprise, use the ambush ability. This picks random players and deals physical damage to anyone within 4 yards, so don't stand on top of other players to avoid the splash damage. The Geomancers will cast a single target spell, Stone Spike, that can be interrupted. They also cast Chain Lightning, which can hit up to 3 players and is a higher priority to interrupt if you have to choose between the two, but more interrupts are always better. Bromach will occasionally cast Thundering Slam. This does a big hit of nature damage to all players within this 12-yard circle around him, so run out or use a magic immunity defensive. Bromach will also summon a Quaking Totem. This deals pulsing damage to the whole group every couple seconds, and when you destroy the totem, it will stun all Stone Vault Trogs in the room, making them take 200% more damage for 10 seconds. So far, however, the groups I've been in don't realize that it does that, and they just go smooth brain tunnel DPS on the boss mode. But if you're having trouble, then destroy this totem and do the fight the correct way. Bromach will also cast Bloodlust eventually, giving his whole group a 30% haste buff for 20 seconds. He seemed to do it when he was pretty low on health, like around 25% health. Next is Sentinel Talondras. Her main mechanic is these resonating orbs and her energy bar. During the fight, Talondras will mark players with resonating orb. This puts a big circle around you, and after that debuff falls off, it'll drop a puddle on the ground that quickly turns into a big floaty orb. If any players or the boss run into one of these orb puddles, they will be stunned for 6 seconds and the orb puddle will go away. This stun is a whopping 6 seconds, so make sure you don't accidentally hit these. Now, you'll see Talondras' energy bar that rapidly fills up during the fight under her health bar, as well as a buff with multiple stacks on it called Inexorable. Those stacks of Inexorable will make her immune to stun effects, but they fall off for every time she's stunned. The tank's job is to run the boss through those 3 stun puddles before she reaches full energy. If she does, she'll gain Titanic Empowerment, which is a 50% damage buff for 30 seconds, and she'll be immune to all crowd control, including those fancy stun orbs. Just make sure to hit her with all 3 of those stun orbs, hopefully before she reaches full energy. Her other move is Crushing Stomp, which is a group-wide hit that knocks people away, so make sure your back isn't one of those stun orbs. She also has Earthern Shards. This is a hefty damage over time effect that hits a single player, so the healer of the group will need to pay attention to who has the debuff and to make sure they top them off a little extra. Next is Emberon. He will do a large frontal cone attack, Searing Clap, so don't stand in front of the boss, and that's something you'll hear a lot in this dungeon. He'll periodically apply unstable embers to a random player, which puts a big red circle on them. Move away from others before the debuff expires, or you'll deal a bunch of friendly fire damage, pun intended. There will also be robots scattered around the edge of the room, which will throw slow-moving fireballs at players, so make sure to dodge those. Around 66% and 33%, Emberon will run to the middle of the room and gain a big fire immunity shield and shoot out these large spinny fire beams. Don't bump into the immunity shield or you'll take damage and get knocked back, and don't get hit by the spinning beams either. You'll take constant fire damage while this shield is active, and you'll need to kill all the Vault Guardian robots around the edge of the room to remove the immunity shield. The fight repeats itself after each of these intermissions, and then you're on to the final boss, Chrono-Lord Deios. Deios has two standard attacks. One is a frontal cone that deals arcane damage, so once again, don't stand near the tank. He also has Wing Buffet, which will knock everyone in the room backwards away from him a bit and deal damage. The main gimmick of this fight is that Deios is constantly throwing Eternity Orbs around the room. When these hit the ground, they make Eternity Puddles that slowly grow bigger and bigger. Standing in these puddles deals damage and reduces your haste by 30%. However, once Deios casts Rewind Time Flow, you want to stand in those puddles because they get transformed into temporal zones, which gives a whopping 50% haste boost. The puddles will shrink as you stand in them and absorb that haste buff, so you're going to want to move between puddles while Rewind Time Flow is active. This not only helps clear the room, but it gives you a big damage boost thanks to all that haste. Now for a heroic version of this, one mechanic is added, called Time Sink. This is a debuff that deals damage and slows the player afflicted by about 35%. This needs to be dispelled, but the person who has the debuff must move away from others before they're dispelled, otherwise it deals a bunch of arcane damage to everyone within 8 yards of that person and knocks them back. And that's the short version of the Uldaman dungeon on normal and heroic. I mainly wanted to do this for the pre-patch event since Uldaman isn't part of Season 1 Mythic Plus for Dragonflight, but I figured it'd give me a chance to practice making these dungeon videos again since it's been a little while since I made one. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in a comment, and I hope this video proves useful to you in the Dragonflight pre-patch event. As always, my appreciation and gratitude to all my viewers, patrons over on Patreon, and my Twitch subs. You folks all help make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so very much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.